National Commander of the American Legion. Commander Reistad.
Fellow members of the American Legion family, distinguished guests, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
My cap may say Virginia, but I'm here this morning to honor the man that saved the Union. My, how times have changed. And they changed for the better, largely because of the president entombed just a few feet from us. At the start of his presidency, it was legal in half the country for one race to own members of another. Americans were divided as to whether the United States was a nation or merely a loose federation of independent states. Upon his election, the United States was already on the verge of its bloodiest war, a tragedy that would come to a merciful end in the last days of Lincoln's life, an important outcome, thanks in part to his unwavering leadership. While Lincoln was a 19th century man dedicated to preserving the Union above any other cause, some have questioned his true commitment to abolition and the fight for racial equality. Though he had previously and publicly criticized Lincoln in this regard, the ex-slave and great social reformer Frederick Douglass didn't begin to truly trust Lincoln until the third year of his presidency. On an August day in 1863, Douglass showed up unannounced at the White House. He'd never met the occupant, who had been a subject of so much hatred in the South and division and criticism in the North. Despite his earlier critiques of his presidency, Douglass was a bit surprised that Lincoln immediately agreed to see him. The meeting was warm. The two discussed not only Lincoln's commitment to the emancipation of slaves, but also Lincoln's then controversial decision to allow black soldiers to serve in the Army. When the meeting ended, Douglass was persuaded that whatever political differences that might exist, Lincoln was an ally. Douglass, "Never come to Washington without calling upon me," Lincoln told him. According to an account by author Peter Carlson, Douglass left with a new fondness for Lincoln. "I was impressed with his entire freedom from popular prejudice against the colored race," Frederick Douglass later said. 60 years after the first meeting between President Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, American Legion delegates gathered in San Francisco during our organization's 5th National Convention. Even though the Ku Klux Klan yielded enormous power in parts of America during the 1920s, our 1923 convention delegates resolved in a strong national statement that groups that foster racial, religious, or class strife and take the enforcement of law into their own hands are, quote, un-American and inconsistent with the ideals and purposes of the American Legion, unquote. Since our founding in 1919, the American Legion believed a veteran is a veteran. Race or religion did not matter to us, and women were welcome to join at a time that was long before most veteran groups recognized their service. When Lincoln opened up the military to black soldiers, their bravery and dedication was noticed. It was noticed again during World War I when the 369th Regiment, the famed Harlem Hellfighters, distinguished themselves with great valor in Europe. They were commanded by one of the future founders of the American Legion, Hamilton Fish, a longtime New York congressman. The heroism, sacrifice, and dedication of the black soldiers, I believe, had an enormous impact on our early Legionnaires. But it would still be another 29 years for the federal government to catch on and require U.S. military units to be integrated. While the 1950s and 60s are generally considered the peak years of the civil rights movement, I truly believe that these positive changes in society were what Lincoln envisioned. As a retired law enforcement officer, I'm saddened at what I see are some of the divisions that we have or have had regarding race relations in our country today. I believe President Lincoln would be too, but he recognized that many battles would be lost before victory would prevail. The victory that he most wanted during his lifetime was the preservation of the unit and the abolishment of slavery. I believe the victory that most in the law enforcement and civil rights communities both seek today is a safe society where all people are treated equally, where police officers and civilians of every race treat each other with mutual respect. When we look at what Lincoln faced, a long, bloody war that took the lives of more than 600,000 Americans, a war that literally tore our country in half, a war that was at times nearly lost, we have to put our modern problems in perspective. Lincoln overcame tremendous odds and hurdles in his lifetime to become what most historians believe is America's greatest president. People often underestimated the country lawyer from Springfield, Illinois. They were wrong to do so. And people would be just as wrong to underestimate what America could accomplish today. Thank you, and God bless.